Well, folks, it's August, and that means school's about to start. And I'm sure everyone's excited about this time of year. Well, maybe or maybe not. Regardless of what side of the fence you are on as far as the excitement part is concerned, one thing is for sure about the start of school, and that is the presence of school buses on the road. And because of this, I want to talk to you today about how we can be safe around school buses and how we can also be legally squared away when sharing the road with a school bus. So let's get into it. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Driver Trainer channel. I'm so glad you can join me today for this very exciting back to school topic regarding school bus safety. School buses are among the safest form of transportation, but their safety does depend on everybody doing their part on the road. In this video, I want to cover what motorists, parents, and students need to know to prevent tragedies out there when boarding the school bus or sharing the road with school buses. And understand that school bus laws do vary by state, so be sure to check your local listings. Now let's talk about why school bus safety matters. Because every school day, millions of children ride school buses. Now, school buses are definitely designed with numerous safety features, including high visibility yellow colors, as well as flashing warning lights, as well as the stop arm that you see sticking out, letting all the motorists know they need to stop, as well as cross view mirrors, as well as compartmentalized seating. Most serious school bus incidents occur outside the bus while children are loading or unloading, and this is the area we really want to focus on in this video, amongst other things that we need to focus on today. Let's talk about understanding the school bus warning lights first of all, and we need to understand the meaning of each signal. When a school bus approaches a stop, it'll activate the amber warning lights. That lets you know that the school bus is about to stop. When you see the ambers flashing on a school bus, you should be prepared to slow down and prepare to stop possibly, and do not attempt to just pass the school bus unless you know you can safely pass the bus before the red lights and stop arm activates. Now, once those lights go from amber to red and that stop arm is extended out, this is the point where children are going to be entering or leaving the bus. And therefore, you need to stop before reaching the bus. You don't stop halfway down the side of the bus or go past the rear bumper and stop. No, folks, you need to stop before physically approaching that bus. In fact, you also want to leave plenty of space between your front bumper and the front bumper of the school bus if you're on the opposite side of traffic, to ensure that children have a safe passage of crossing between both vehicles. And you must remain stopped until the stop arm retracts, the red lights up on top stop flashing, and it would be best to watch the bus begin to move. Now, when must drivers stop for a school bus? Let's start with a 2-lane road. In those instances, all traffic must stop. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Everybody must stop. Now, what about multi-lane roadways without a median? Now, if you are traveling the same direction as the bus, all traffic must stop on that side of the roadway. Now, we are talking about multi-lane as in 4 or more lanes where there are 2 or more lanes traveling each direction. So if you have a situation where you have one lane going one direction to the other, this does not count. It must be 2 and 2 on each side or more in order for this to apply. The same side must stop. Now, as far as the opposite side, if there's no solid divider, this will vary by state. So you will need to check your local listings because there are a handful of states that do not require stopping on any multi-lane roadway, while there are another handful of states that do require all vehicles stop on any undivided roadways. So once again, make sure you check your local listings on this. How about divided highways? This is where it's multi-lane, just like I described previously, where you have 2 or more lanes in each direction. But instead of a double solid yellow line down the center of the street, you have some sort of physical divider, whether it be a solid median, whether it be a grass strip, or if it would be a concrete barrier known as a Jersey barrier. On these particular divided roadways, the traffic traveling the same direction as the school bus is required by law to stop. If you are on the opposite side of the highway, you are free to proceed. But still keep your eyes open in case some child decides to dart out. Now, there are some common violations I want to touch on real quick, and those include passing a stopped school bus when the stop arm is deployed, and definitely do not pass a school bus on the shoulder, stopped or not, or distracted driving in school zones. If you are caught committing any of these violations, the possible consequences can include heavy fines, license suspensions, increased insurance rates, and criminal charges if someone is injured. And this is especially true when it comes to the stop arm violation. So you want to be mindful of school buses that are stopped as well as school zones so you don't get caught up in any of these violations. Now let's talk about railroad crossings. Now, many of you, I'm sure, have noticed that school buses stop at railroad crossings, amongst other types of vehicles. This is because federal regulations require all school buses to stop. And the same goes for other kinds of buses for hire, like the city bus, the Greyhound, and so forth, or any trucks that are hauling hazardous material. Now, when buses stop at a railroad crossing, they need the timing to completely stop at the railroad crossing, open the service door and the window to look and listen. So never honk or pressure a school bus to move. And I also want to add this as well. If the lights are flashing at the railroad crossing, those required stop vehicles must wait at the railroad crossing or find a way to turn around. And if the lights are not flashing, but there is a train approaching that's visible, even if it's ways down the track, that vehicle must still remain at the railroad crossing or find a way to turn around. Now, do not pass a stopped school bus or any stopped vehicle at a railroad crossing. And I'm not talking about multi-lane roadways where they're stopped in the right lane, you pass on the left lane. I'm talking about single lane road each direction where somebody doesn't want to wait for the stopped vehicle and they just go around. If you are caught, that can actually land you a more serious violation than the typical traffic violation. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, when you share the road with the school bus, you want to give the school bus or any commercial vehicles extra following distance. And also expect frequent stops. And then also watch for children who may suddenly cross the road. And I also want to throw this out to you. The school buses nowadays have video cameras to catch violations. And if you violate a school bus regulation, especially violation of the stop arm, the school bus driver can use that video, fill out an affidavit, and send it to the local police department, and a ticket can be issued to you by mail. When you're driving in school zones, obviously there's going to be school buses present, as well as children walking out and about, especially ones who don't ride a school bus because they live nearby. They will be walking to school. You want to be on extra guard in the school zones that you travel through. Make sure you obey the reduced speed limits, and those speed limits in any school zone can vary by school and the type of roadway that's present. Don't assume all school speed zones are the same. The most common speed limit is 20. However, there are school zones that are posted at 15. I don't think I've seen anything below 15, like 5 or 10. If you have, feel free to share that in the comments. I'd be curious to know if there is anything lower than 15. The most common is 20. I've seen some at 25 or 30 or even 45, and that's usually because the roadways and the neighborhoods they're in are not as residential as the typical 15 or 20 mile an hour school speed zone. And keep in mind, most of them will say at the bottom, on school days when children are present, you don't want to be complacent on that and assume that's all school zones, because some will have a flashing yellow light and it'll say when flashing. Or it may have other verbiage. So you want to pay attention to the verbiage, because the verbiage can vary below the speed limit number. Also, watch for crossing guards. And when you're driving in a school zone, expect children to behave unpredictably. Also, be sure to eliminate distractions. In fact, it'd probably be good to be off the phone while you're in those school zones, if possible, handheld or hands-free. And then if you need to resume a hands-free call, then do that once you're out of the school zone and you're in the clear. And be especially cautious during arrival and dismissal times. Now, I want to give some safety tips, as well as some tips that the school bus drivers out there would love for parents to understand, so we can keep children safe. When you're at the school bus stop, help your bus driver out by being there in plenty of time, at least 5 minutes early. That way the school bus can run in a timely manner. Also, wait in a safe location away from traffic. Also, make sure your kids never play around the roadway. The school bus stop is not the place to be practicing baseball pitches or your football passes. No, that's the place where you need to be paying attention to traffic so you don't get hit and waiting for the school bus. And it's also smart if you dress your children in bright or reflective clothing when appropriate. Now, let's talk about crossing the street. You want to teach your children, and the schools should be teaching this as well, to wait for the driver's signal before crossing. So if you're at a bus stop where you need to cross the street in order to board the bus, don't assume when the red stop arm deploys on the side of the bus and the red lights are flashing that everyone's going to stop. I'm sure many of you have seen videos out there on social media of a school bus stop arm being deployed, and here comes somebody at the last minute, boom! They blow right through the stop arm. Let your bus driver give the motion like this before you cross. And also, make sure your kids cross well in front of the bus where the driver can see them, as there are plenty of blind spots, and I'll talk about blind spots in just a moment here. Also, never cross behind the bus. That's a dangerous place to cross, believe it or not, because when a bus driver loads and unloads children, that driver needs to know where all children are at and needs to account for that child. If that child goes down the side of the bus and around, that bus driver doesn't know where that kid is at. There's no guarantee of any safety crossing behind that bus because there's no visibility for that driver to know what's going on. So we definitely want to refrain from our children crossing behind the bus. And always teach your children to look left, look right, look left again. Make sure it's clear before crossing. Don't assume people are just going to stop for that stop arm. Also, if something falls near the bus, never bend down to retrieve it. Tell the bus driver immediately, and then the bus driver will make the decision as to what the next plan of action is to retrieve that item. Also, before boarding, always do a single file line and go in it. The bus actually boards a lot quicker than if everyone crowds in, because otherwise it'll just be like a funnel, and it's just like trying to evacuate a crowded movie theater in an emergency. It just looks chaotic, as opposed to a single file line where everything loads decently and orderly. And make sure you stay out of the danger zone around the bus, which we'll talk about in a moment here, and wait until the bus completely stops before making a move. And then while riding, teach your kids to remain seated and face forward and keep aisles clear. Keep hands and head inside the bus. Also teach your kids when they're speaking to their neighbors, they speak quietly, not that they whisper like this, but just at a monotone voice to where the bus driver isn't distracted from excessive noise. And then exiting the bus. You want to teach your kids to walk off the bus, don't run. Once they're off the bus, move away from the bus immediately. And stay in a position where the driver can see you. And you need to understand the danger zones and explain to your kids the blind spots around a school bus. And that can be 10 feet in front of a bus, 10 feet behind the bus, although we don't want kids going behind the bus, and along both sides. I'm going to show you some photos so you can see the forward visibility or the lack of visibility thereof from the perspective of a driver's seat. Now, I don't have immediate access to a yellow school bus, so we are going to be utilizing a typical freight truck for this illustration. Now, as far as the visibility, this may vary from bus to bus, as it's going to be contingent mainly on the slope of the hood. Now in these photos, I'm going to be placing 3 cones in front of our sample truck here. They're all going to be 18 inches apart. So the first one is 18 inches from the front bumper. Then the second one, another 18 inches apart, so 36 inches. And the third one, another 18 inches, so we're 54 inches or 4.5 feet from the bumper. Now, as you can see from the driver's seat photo, you cannot see any of the 3 cones. Now we're going to move these cones out. The furthest cone is going to stay in place while the 2 other cones are going to be moved further out. Now the furthest cone is over 7 feet from the bumper. Now in this photo, the driver's seat perspective, you can barely see the tip of the furthest cone. Now we will rinse and repeat here and move the cones out so the last cone is now at least 10 feet away. Here you can begin seeing the top portions of the cones. Now as you see these photos, folks, with the orange cones, this is why it's very important that your child walks further out at least 10 feet from the bus. Now at one time, school buses were required by law to have the crossbar mounted to the bumper and extends out as basically the zone where children need to extend out to before walking in front of the bus. I'm starting to see a lot of buses these days not being equipped with those, so it seems like the law may have changed, which I disagree with. I think all school buses should be equipped with those crossbars. And if your school district does not utilize those, I would call your school board and say, hey, you should put those crossbars on your bumpers of your buses. Now, those crossbars started to originate back in the 90s. And then in the late 90s, the city I live in, we had a school bus driver drop off some riders, including a 5-year-old girl who crossed right at the front corner of the school bus. The bus driver did not realize it, was not paying attention to the crossview mirrors, took off. Long story short, somebody flagged the bus driver down, stopped the bus to tell the driver what had happened. He ended up unaliving this 5-year-old girl. At this point, the school district was getting brand new school buses with crossbars already pre-installed on these buses. But after this incident, the school district decided to mount crossbars on all of the school buses, spent the extra money, and went ahead and put them on all their buses. And not long after that, it became legally mandatory that all school buses be equipped with these crossbars. This is why it's important to teach your children that there are blind spots on a school bus they need to be aware of, and to cross properly in front of a bus whenever crossing is required. Now I want to give you a final safety reminder before I wrap this up. Make sure you slow down around schools. Expect the unexpected. Also, never drive distracted near school buses. And make sure you give yourself extra travel time during the school year, especially if you know you're going to be traveling in school areas. So in closing, remember that a few extra seconds of patience can definitely save a child's life. The responsibility of safety around school zones and school buses lie in the hands of everyone. This includes the bus drivers. If you're watching, bus drivers, thank you for joining, and thank you for all you do, and make sure you be safe out there, as well as parents. Parents, let's teach our children to be safe around the school buses and make sure they cross properly. And make sure you understand what crossing situation your child's going to be involved in this fall. If you're a student watching this video, thank you for joining. If you ride the school bus to school, make sure you understand where you need to cross, if you need to cross in front of that bus, and make sure you be safe this year. If any of you students are teenagers that are about to get a driver's license, especially if you're about to take driver's ed, I encourage you to watch some of my other videos to be squared away behind the wheel. I hope everybody found this information very informative and very helpful as we kick off a new school year. I want you to be sure to share this video with everybody because we want to keep our school zones as safe as possible, as well as our school bus stops. Also, parents, make sure you share this with those you know that are also parents of children that are in school, because we want to make sure our children are safe this year. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Driver Trainer channel because you don't want to miss other informative videos like this. I'd like to thank you for watching, and as always, be safe out there. Thank you.